Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Texas State Board of Examiners of Professional Counselors. Today is Friday, June 7th, 2024 at 9:02 a.m. And we're meeting in person today at the Bush Building in Austin. That's going to be our gavel.
Works.
Let's do introductions starting down here on my left with Ms. Compagnone.
Good morning. My name is Brenda Compagnone, and that's really good. Thank you. Here, I'll stand. I've heard campaign, champagne, Compagnone. I could go on. Nonetheless, I'm a professional member. Thank you for being here.
Dr. Chris Taylor, Vice Chair.
Stephen Hallbauer, Chair, Public Member.
Dr. Loretta Bradley, professional member.
Jen Winston, public.
Dr. Janie Stubblefield, professional member.
And joining us via Zoom, Ms. Hall. Will you introduce yourself, please?
Yes. Good morning, Vanessa Hall, public member.
Thank you very much. That does mean that we have a quorum. Christina, continue on, please.
Yes, Christina DeLuna, Board Administrator. And before we keep going this way, I'm going to name off the individuals online that we have, which is Attorney Victoria Benitez, Attorney Kenneth Long, Operations Manager Tim Spear, and we also have Executive Assistant Brenda Skiff, who is here in the building, or I'm sorry, in the room.
Robert Romig, Deputy Director. Last but not least,
Patrick Hyde, General Counsel.
Thank you. And I would like to note the excused absence of Dr. Leah Amuna. Let's go ahead and move forward. I'm going to make a quick note about a change in our typical agenda here. Usually we jump right into business, but we have made some changes in the order that we take things. From now on, we will, right after introductions, we will, it's our intention to move ahead with public comment following right after introductions. The thought here being is, why don't we hear from you before we bring up our discussion items today, or so you can let us know your opinion on things instead of doing it at the very end after we've already decided. So plan from now on, public comment following right after introductions. However, that's not going to be the case today because we do have some matters to hear regarding applications, and in an effort to accommodate the schedules of those appellants that we're going to hear today, we're going to take them first. So we're going to have those matters, and then we'll follow with public comment. Okay, Christina, item number 3, please.
Good morning. So our first appeal case today is going to be for Robert Jones. And Mr. Jones, if you are on the call, please raise your hand in the Zoom function so that we can be sure and see that you are here. Board members, you have this material in your file, and let me bring that up. So an overview about this appeal for Robert Jones. He is a military applicant. The applicant holds a master's in healthcare administration. Per Texas Occupations Code 503, an applicant must hold a degree that is counseling or related. BHEC staff has determined that the healthcare administration degree is a non-counseling degree, and the applicant is not eligible for licensure. If the board determines that the degree is related, then staff can go back and continue the evaluation related to the application. If one big thing that we did see is that he was missing all of the individual courses, but we did not evaluate based on experience hours for his military experience. So at this point, the board is asked to determine if the degree in healthcare administration is considered counseling or related.
Is Mr. Jones on the Zoom, Christina?
I'm sorry?
Is Mr. Jones on the Zoom?
I don't think so. He was going to be out at sea.
Oh, yes. No, he is actually out at sea. That's right. So he is not here today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone representing Mr. Jones, perhaps?
I don't believe we received a letter of representation from
From an attorney for him.
Not for him.
Okay. Board, it seems pretty black and white on this. The statute does specifically state that an administration degree is not considered counseling related. So if anyone feels as though there's some nuance to this, then I'd love to hear options that Mr. Jones might have. But otherwise, this one seems pretty straightforward. Any comment? Is there any way to remedy this degree?
The only thing that staff can see is that a new degree would need to be earned that's counseling or related.
Okay. So really the best option he has is however many courses could count to a counseling or counseling related degree would get him part of the way there.
Right. And I think as Christina said, there were a lot of the required, if it was a counseling related degree and we looked through the courses to see if it met your course requirements, those are not met either.
Correct.
And so we're not sure that he would earn much in the way of credit through this degree in any case.
Okay. If there's nothing to add, I need a motion on whether we will deny the application.
So move.
Thank you, Ms. Campanone. Do I have a second? Dr. Bradley, thank you. Is there any discussion regarding the motion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of denying the application, please raise your hand, signal, and note Vanessa. Okay, the application is denied. Next one, Christina.
Okay, the next case we have is for Vincent Tennyson, who does have legal counsel, which is attorney Bradley Worster. That material is in your board packet, and Vincent Tennyson and Bradley Worster, if you are on the call, I believe I did see one of the names, please raise your hand so that we can easily find you here in a moment. So this case is related to an MPDB self-report that indicated the applicant had surrendered their LCDC license in 2011. A detailed narrative of that report is on page 14 of your board packet. So at this point, staff need the board to determine if they would accept the past LCDC surrender. Either second option would be accept the LCD surrender with stipulations towards his LPC license, or deny the application. And let's see.
They are both.
Okay.
Let's go with the appellant first, Mr. Tennyson, unless he wants counsel to speak for him. They're both on there.
All right, Mr. Tennyson.
Good morning.
Mr. Tennyson, thank you for joining us. You will have 3 minutes to address the board.
Thank you, sir. Honorable members of the Behavioral Health Executive Committee, good morning. Thank you for granting me the opportunity to speak with you today. Please know that I come before you with a deep sense of humility and a profound hope for redemption. 13 years ago, I voluntarily surrendered my license as a licensed chemical dependency counselor after self-reporting questionable conduct to the board. This decision marked a turning point in my life, one that has since been defined by personal growth, self-reflection, and an unwavering determination to better myself. During these past 13 years, I have embarked on a journey of profound transformation. I have dedicated myself to understanding the gravity of my past actions and to cultivating a life grounded in integrity, compassion, and service. My journey has been one of personal and professional growth deeply rooted in faith, higher education, and enriched personal relationships. First and foremost, my faith in God. has been the cornerstone of my transformation. Through prayer, study, meditation, and active participation in faith community, I sought guidance, strength, and forgiveness. My relationship with God has instilled in me a sense of purpose and a commitment to living life that reflects his teachings of love, honesty, and humility. In addition to my spiritual growth, I have pursued higher education with dedication to becoming a better counselor and an individual. I completed a master's in clinical mental health counseling with high honors and obtained certifications that have not only expanded my knowledge and skills, but also reinforced my commitment to ethical practice and professional excellence. My academic journey has equipped me with the latest therapeutic techniques, a deeper understanding of human behavior, and reinforced ethical foundation. Furthermore, I have worked diligently to improve my personal relationships. I have sought guidance from mentors, engaged in open and honest dialogues with colleagues, cultivated a supportive network of family and friends. These relationships have provided me with invaluable perspectives, continuous feedback, and an unwavering support and love. I have learned the importance of empathy, accountability, and communication through these connections, which are, essential qualities in both my personal and professional life. I'm committed to applying the lessons I have learned and that growth I have experienced to serve others as a professional counselor. I understand the weight of my past actions, and I am deeply aware of the responsibility that comes with this profession. I assure you that I am dedicated to upholding the highest standards of ethical conduct, professionalism, and compassion in my practice. In conclusion, I humbly request that you reconsider your determination and grant me the opportunity to demonstrate readiness to resume my role.
3 minutes.
Thank you,
Excuse me?
Mr. Tennyson. I apologize. You're at your 3-minute limit.
I can finish up in 30 seconds if you could allow me that.
I'll allow 30 more seconds.
Thank you, sir. I am prepared to undergo any additional training, supervision, or evaluation deemed necessary to ensure that I meet the highest standards of ethical and professional conduct. I recognize the trust that is invested in each licensee to uphold the highest standards of ethical conduct and professional competence. I assure you I do not take this trust lightly. And I am fully committed to meeting and exceeding the guidelines set forth by this esteemed committee. I am confident that my journey of personal growth and redemption has equipped me with the wisdom, humility, and integrity to serve with distinction and make meaningful contributions to the field of behavioral health. Thank you for your time and consideration. I am deeply grateful for the opportunity to present my case and to share my journey of growth and redemption.
Thank you, Mr. Tennyson. At this point, we will hear from counsel, Mr. Worster. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Counsel, you have 3 minutes.
At this point in time, I mean, we've presented a response that is outlined kind of what had occurred, what was the initial incident that had started this initial self-report by Mr. Tennyson while he was a licensed chemical dependency counselor. At that point in time, he was approached and had a conversation with a patient of another provider, in which at that time she had graciously offered to provide Mr. Tennyson with furniture for his home, invited him over to her house. Unbeknownst to Mr. Tennyson, she had made sexual advances towards him, in which there was a brief relationship with that. The day after, Mr. Tennyson approached his supervisor, asking them for guidance on how to properly take care of this matter, because he felt that this was a violation of his own ethics and moral code, and reported this into the Behavioral Health Executive Committee. Because of what occurred at that point in time, Mr. Tennyson felt that his own obligation to surrender his own license. This was without any kind of outside pressure by the board to surrender it or any type of settlement to forego any type of litigation. However, in hindsight, Mr. Tennyson regrets surrendering it and knows that he should have probably went through the procedural aspects of this and let the board make a determination. However, he took a drastic step by surrendering his own license, knowing that he wasn't able at that time to provide adequate care to or counseling to any individuals and needed to work on his own well-being. And at that time, he surrendered his license. Now, throughout the last 13 years, he's achieved higher education. The higher education has helped him recognize tools that he can use. He realizes that he has gone through some counseling himself, has done anything to kind of rectify any of his improper conduct, realizes in hindsight, and with time, age, and knowledge, he believes that he's now willing and able and would be a great asset to the behavioral health community by being licensed. And, you know, as well as what we had said in our response, Mr. Tennyson would be willing to do any type of probation or additional education or any type of monitoring that the board may require to make sure that he does fall within the guidelines of the Behavioral Health Executive Committee. We ask that you reconsider your determination, consider the steps that Mr. Tennyson has taken and take that into consideration in permitting him to be licensed as a professional license. Thank you for your time and your service on the board.
Thank you, Mr. Worcester. Board, before we begin discussion, any specific questions that anyone would like to ask either Mr. Tennyson or his attorney before we begin? Okay, Dr. Bradley.
Mr. Tennyson, tell me about I know you've completed a master's degree, but could you tell me what specific courses, for example, that would help you improve? Like, did you have 1 or 2 ethics courses, or what was this training in ethics?
We had ethics course. We had multicultural counseling. I also took CEUs in ethics recently. I think probably the multicultural and ethics courses both taught me about power differential, which I had never honestly considered to be that important in the past, and opened my eyes to the difference that a person in a professional counseling situation has. The power differential is profound, and I have a newfound respect for the profession of counseling.
I want to be sure that I understand your response correctly. Did you have 1 separate course in ethics or 2 separate courses in ethics?
There was 1 course in ethics within the master's degree, and then I took a CEU, free CEU course in ethics as well.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Bradley. Further questions?
Yes, Chair.
Dr. Stubblefield.
Mr. Tennyson, can you give me a little bit of insight into what type of practice setting you'll be in and the types of clients that you plan to serve?
So considering my prior history of trauma and abuse, I believe that I would be best served to work with men, possibly incarcerated men, reunification with their family and their children. That is where my heart lies.
In what setting are you going to work at the jail? Are you going to be in private practice? How do you plan to serve this community?
I'm currently volunteering at my church. The lead counselor there has recently opened a private practice. I would like to work there with him. And I also have a supervisor that was a chaplain while I was in LCDC 15 years ago to supervise my LPCA.
Thank you. I believe Ms. Hall has her hand up.
Go ahead, Vanessa.
Hi, Mr. Tennyson. Thank you for all your accomplishments after the incident. But I have one question for you. Did your relationship with the individual stop after you surrendered, or did it continue?
It stopped. I saw her at meetings.
Okay. So there were no more one-on-one encounters with her that would fall under, the guidelines or outside the guidelines of your profession?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Tennyson, what's your current age?
I am just turned 60.
Okay. Should you receive licensure, are you going to self-impose barriers on the clients that you would treat?
I believe that I've been healed of my poor boundaries. I do want to work with men and families and children. My specific focus would be on men's trauma, but I would not shy away from working with men and their wives.
Okay.
I am more than willing to have a self-imposed barrier if the committee deems it necessary.
Okay.
I have a question for him.
Go ahead, Brenda.
Good morning. So, in a review of all the documents that we received, I noticed that there was a diagnosis of PTSD. Do you plan on continuing with counseling to address PTSD?
So the EMDR was a fascinating experience. I believe that my higher power was involved in and moved me through some fairly stunning visual pathways. EMDR is certainly something I'm planning on getting certified in and continuing in my relationship with Efren, who is the man who is the leader at my church and the person who gave me EMDR, would be ultimately beneficial. Although I have worked through all of my trauma and I no longer have flashbacks or intrusive memories or dreams of the old experiences.
Mr. Tennyson, who is the supervisor you selected?
Oh my gosh, you say that and I forget his name. Hang on one second. I'm so sorry. I have so many different things on my mind.
No
Oh
problem.
my gosh. His name is it's in the supervisor name, Randall Duncan.
And how did you come to select him as your supervisor?
So I had a couple of different options for supervisors. Randall is completing his PhD. He has really surpassed where I ever dreamed of being as a counselor. He is a teacher. He has done private practice. He's very involved in biblical counseling and also in secular counseling as well. So he's well versed. He's a great teacher. He has a great heart for God. To me, it was a very easy choice.
Yes, go ahead.
I need to disclose that I know Randall Duncan, and as a matter of fact, I'm chairing his dissertation. My question, however, to you, is he aware of the situation that occurred in 2011?
He is.
And he understands the ramifications. You've not only told him, but you've discussed what you perceive as the issue that he would need to be aware of as a supervisor.
Randall and I have discussed at length the potential for me getting my license back. He is hopeful that I will, and that he will be there with me every step of the way through any and all exercises, challenges.
I
he
don't
is
think
very aware.
I phrased my question as I'd intended. What I was intending to ask you, is he aware of his need to be cognizant that this does not occur again, or even if he perceives it occurring again, how much awareness does he have?
Gosh, I don't think I could answer that question honestly. That would be a question for Randall, I think. I'm sorry, I don't know how to answer that.
Okay, but then answer to me, how much do you feel you have really divulged to him?
I have divulged the whole story to Randall.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Further questions? Okay. Mr. Tennyson and Mr. Worcester, if you guys will hang on for a second in case we need to follow up with any questions. Board, let's go ahead and discuss this. We have different options, and even within those options, there's lots of different possibilities of outcomes on this. Anyone with a real strong opinion on this who already feels one way or the other, please let me know.
Christina, can you verify for me? He's applying to be an associate, yes?
I believe so, yes.
And he has no other criminal history or any other issues?
No.
Okay.
I feel like he's done enough and is mindful of his past and choices, and moving forward would like to help others who have possibly been in the same situation or diagnosis. I mean, I'm looking to accept and allow him to continue through the application process. The only thing that I am concerned about is that I'm familiar with the diagnosis, and I'm also trained in EMDR, but I still feel there's lots of triggers out there, and I just want to make sure that he always has someone to turn to. And if it's counseling, maybe that needs to continue. I'm not really sure. It's just how I feel about this right now.
You summarized what she said. I think
You know what? I didn't even speak in the mic, did I? Sorry. So what I was saying is that I feel like he's done some good things, and he wants to move forward and go into this new chapter of his life. The only thing I'm concerned about is the population he wants to serve, and that has a lot to do with things that he's already experienced. And I know he said he's gone through the whole EMD process. EMDR is a very long process. I'm just wondering if him being in counseling would also trigger him, if that's the population he's going to be working with. So, I mean, I'm okay with him moving on with the application process. I just don't know if that stipulation would be continue counseling or what, but that's just how I feel right now.
Dr. Stubblefield, reservations on this one?
I am in support of our second option there, accepting the past surrender with stipulations. One of the things that I like to have are those quarterly reports from the supervisor, just so we can kind of keep a pretty regular feedback from that supervisor in terms of progress. That would be my request for stipulation.
Okay. Dr. Bradley?
I would be in support of moving on, providing I would like to see some additional training in ethics. It doesn't have to be a course, but I would like to see a minimum number of CE credits for the next 2 to 3 years, and that could be obtained online at a conference or whatever. So I'm for moving on, but with certain monitoring.
Okay. Dr. Taylor, your thoughts on this?
I'd like to move forward without stipulations. I think this was 13 years ago. He has gotten a master's degree in counseling since then. He was not an LPC. He was a LCDC. He voluntarily surrendered his license. He filed the complaint himself and has done an immense amount of work on himself by his own accord. He chose to do all this. He chose all of this. I think that's very admirable. I think we have a mental health shortage in this state, and I think we need good therapists. And I think he has proven that he is doing more work than most of us.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Taylor. I'm going to speak to to my fellow public members, Jen and Vanessa. The bottom line of our responsibility is to protect the public. And would you feel as though allowing this man to have a full license presents a threat to the public? I usually like to say material risk of harm to the public. Imagine this scenario. Mr. Tennyson has an incident and that the victim reports it to the local news, and then they run up to you with a camera and a microphone, and they say, how did you allow this man to get his license back? How would you respond to that? Because that's kind of the analysis I have to make is, can I look in the mirror and say, after hearing all of the circumstances and after lengthy discussion, I was okay with it, and I understood that this was a possible risk, and yet I was willing to take it. And that's how I view it. So public members, any thoughts on this?
No, I don't see him as a threat.
Okay. Vanessa, what about you?
I definitely do not see him as a threat. I think that he has gone above and beyond to surrender, to be accountable, to be very transparent. And if I were a client of his and he never shared that with me, obviously I wouldn't know. But if I found out in retrospect, I would not feel that he has put me in harm's way or that I can't trust him. And I find it very admirable what he has done. So even as a budding therapist, I understand none of us is perfect and people make mistakes, but he has definitely paid for his mistakes. And I have a lot of admiration for this gentleman.
Thank you, Vanessa. My thoughts on this is I put a lot of weight on Mr. Tennyson's candor on the self-report. Too often we see situations where somebody doesn't own up to something until they get caught. And like so many of the disciplinary hearings we have, it's somebody turned that person in, but that wasn't the case here. I put a lot of weight in that. And also the length of time that it's been since this incident, that also factors into me. For me, I can only assume based on the evidence that we have in front of us is that there hasn't been anything else since 2011. That factors in for me. I'm going to kind of lean on the recommendations of our professional members if they feel as though some stipulations are warranted here. So if anyone wants to propose any stipulations, or Dr. Taylor, if you want to propose with none.
Yeah, I would like to propose with none, Mr. Chair. But before, I just want to remind everybody that he is by default under stipulations. He's an associate. So he's meeting with a supervisor, 4 hours a month. While he's not sending in a quarterly report, he still has to send in a final report. A qualified, apparently a highly qualified supervisor, as Dr. Bradley has pointed out. So I think approving with stipulations, I think just adds unnecessary work that just seems, I mean, he's already under stipulations. So I'd like to make a motion to approve his application without stipulation.
Okay. Dr. Taylor has made a motion. Do we have a second on his motion?
A second.
Second,
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Vanessa has seconded. So now we will begin discussion on the motion to approve without further stipulations.
So I want to just kind of get feedback from the professional members about how you just want to get feedback from the professional members about how you feel with him continuing counseling.
Well, I mean, I think we're all therapists, so we should be in therapy for life.
Mm-hmm. And
I
I'm
mean
not-
that seriously.
that no,
I see therapists
I-
regularly.
I completely agree, and I think that's the question that I had for him is he still in therapy? Mr. Tennyson?
Am I still in therapy?
Yes, sir.
I am in a small group at church that having to do with a therapeutic environment, but formally seeing a therapist at this time, I am not, but I'm more than happy to.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Stubblefield and Dr. Bradley, is Dr. Taylor's motion too far for you guys? It's approval with no stipulations. And you guys had both indicated that you were leaning towards stipulations.
I'm leaning towards stipulations, or at least strong recommendations. I want to see him. I mean, I don't think any of us is beyond getting more information about ethics. And I do applaud the fact that this occurred so long ago and that it was a self-report. But I still would like to see some indication, and it doesn't have to be X number of hours other than some indication that there's some work still going on in the area of ethics.
Dr. Bradley, would that not be covered under general supervision? I mean, does the supervisor not review ethics?
I think they review it, Dr. Taylor, but I don't think they would review it in the way I'm looking at it. I would, when I teach the supervision class, of course,
Right.
that's a component of it. But what I'm talking about is more study in supervision. I'm not suggesting a class, but I would feel better if a client came to me if there were ever a problem, which I'm not expecting, that I've said, well, I saw a problem here in ethical behavior and I took means to try to remediate it. So that I feel that he has the, and is obtaining the background that he needs. You can only cover so much in one course of ethics, and I realize that that's all we require. But I think in this case, continuation.
So he had the master's level course. He's had multiple practicums, and he's taken additional CEs on that. Is that not? And then he's going to go into supervision where he'll continue to get a review in ethics. Is that not?
And I agree.
You don't feel like that's enough?
I agree with all of that, but I think for the next year or two, I'd like to see some more CEs in the ethical realm.
Okay. Okay.
Dr. Stubblefield, is Dr. Taylor's motion, is that too far for you?
Well, Dr. Taylor, I do understand that he is under supervision. I guess where I'm coming from is helping support that supervisor by having those quarterly reports. So the supervisor understands what the board's trying to make sure that we support him and help him through that associate season in a manner that allows him to be most successful. It was my understanding from the material and from what he said that he had a supervisor when this happened before. And so if that quarterly reporting helps that supervisor to also help him through this, I want him to be successful.
He was an LCDC and he went to his workplace supervisor, not
Okay.
his licensed supervisor. I know that phrase gets confusing for us. I want him to be successful too, and I think that's why we have the associate program. That's why they go through 3,000 hours with a licensed supervisor that has gone through a 40-hour training course, and that is apparently meeting with Dr. Bradley regularly. So,
What?
I don't know how we can support him any more than we are. I mean, any quarterly reports that we issue, I don't know what that's really going to do for us.
Well, this supervisor you're referring to, I'm chairing his dissertation, but we're not into
Right.
the ethical realm or anything.
Understand.
And I'd settled for just over 2 years, 2 hours of ethics where I'd settled for a webinar just to show that he's getting some additional training.
I think my holdup is that if he was licensed as an LPC, then this occurred, and he wanted to come back and say, hey, I'd like to get my license back, I think I would agree with everybody with the stipulations. But everything we're asking for, the both of you, the three of you are asking, he's done. He's done it. He's done the webinar on ethics. He's taken a master's level course on ethics. He got a whole degree all over something that happened 13 years ago. I think this person is rehabilitated, ready to go. I don't see the value in any additional stipulations.
Maybe the question might be directed to him. Does he feel some additional training would be of help to him?
I think if I could suggest anything further that I could do, I've read Cloud and Townsend's Boundaries, and of course Melody Beattie's Codependent No More was a lifesaver for me. But I wouldn't mind doing like a book report on professional boundaries, because that seems to be the issue for me. It stemmed from a mother wound, and therefore my boundaries with women were distorted. And I think I've healed and I think I've moved on, but I think that, any information with regard to boundaries is always going to be good. So what I mean is like a chapter by chapter report of what I'm getting out of the book and turned into Randall.
Mr. Worcester, you have your hand raised. Would you like to speak?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, I mean, as for like counseling and support and mentorship, as Mr. Tennyson has pointed out, I mean, he's going to weekly small groups with his church. He's also, meeting with some of the leaders of that too. And so he's constantly being monitored and held accountable in those small groups. And those small groups aren't meant for him to lead, but more so for his support, as by Christian organization. And although, state and church has to be separated, the whole point of that is, I mean, it's very similar to, AA or Narcotics Anonymous, and having individuals to turn to say, look, I feel like I'm having issues or problems. And he has somebody to turn to talk to kind of, talk this out loud and work out the issue and come to, some kind of conclusion of like, hey, I think that this person might have, wrong intentions towards you, and maybe you should, take a step back, or maybe fire them as a patient and send them to a different therapist who may be able to, handle this person better, just because of realizing that maybe that patient is pursuing something other than just counseling, if that is the issue.
So I love that he's attending something with the church. I mean, I love that. And Dr. Taylor is right. I mean, we all have someone that we need to talk to as well. And I guess I just want to hear from him that, he's going to entertain some counseling at some point, because things do come up. And when you become licensed as a therapist versus LCDC, oh boy, what a different world. And doing this now 19 years, I think, it can tend to weigh on you. So that's really all I wanted you to hear. I want to hear from you. Just say, look, I'll entertain counseling because it benefits me. Period. Mr. Chair, I can go with stipulations or without. I totally agree with the quarterly reports. I love the ethics portion of it as well. So I mean, I'm ready to move forward with this. I think it's pretty clear on what we need to do. So
Okay. We do need to take a vote regarding the motion that is at hand, unless Dr. Taylor would like to make any changes to his motion before we vote.
No, I do not.
Then the motion, which was put forth by Dr. Taylor and seconded by Ms. Campanone, is to accept the past LCD.
Vanessa Hall.
My apologies. It was Vanessa. Bang. I'm gonna be suspended here. My apologies for that. The motion is to accept option number 1, accept past LCDC surrender and allow staff to continue with the LPC associate application process, as in no stipulations. So all in favor, please raise your hand. That's Dr. Taylor, Ms. Hall, and Ms. Winston. So motion fails. At this point, we will consider any motions to, and I believe we're leaning on option number 2, accept the past LCDC surrender, move forward with stipulations. Yes, Patrick.
Mr. Chair, I'm just going to suggest there might be an in-between option that you may want to consider between the actual eligibility order, because it sounds like it's either a complete approval with nothing, just you're approved, move on, and then there's approval with an actual eligibility order. The eligibility order obviously will spell out the terms and conditions he has to either do before we issue it or after we issue the license. He has to do things during that, and if he did not comply with all those conditions, we could discipline his license. The in-between option would be, it wouldn't be enforceable like an order, but it sounds like there's a bunch of things that the board is thinking would be good for him to do. And so you could issue a letter with an advisement that you should be cognizant of these issues. You should take these particular steps. You should do these things. I would just remind the board that issuing that letter wouldn't necessarily mean that we could enforce it if he doesn't do them. But it sounds like you're teetering on between whether or not making have to do these things, requiring him, or recommending it. And so I wanted to just throw that in there, that there's maybe an in-between option between those two steps of just approving it without telling him, hey, you should do these other things.
And so in doing that, then we could go back to number 2.
What number 2?
Number 1. I'm sorry.
Yeah, option number 1, because option number 2 would be it's an eligibility order, so it's a order that we would, we could hold his feet to the fire if he doesn't.
So we could still say, require ethics course for a year, year and a half, 2 years, 3 days, 2 hours, quarterly reports, but we can't enforce it.
We would recommend it. We just
Okay.
wouldn't be able to force the letter because it's a one-sided, hey, this is what we think you should do.
Okay.
And so you're advised to do these things. So if he ever does come back and there is a complaint and we have to take action against him, we say, hey, we advise you to do these things. Did you do any of them? Because we were hoping not to see you for a disciplinary matter, and now you are here. So,
Okay.
But we couldn't say you didn't do these things that you were asked to do in the letter. So it's not legally enforceable. It's basically what it is.
So it would be considered if there was another matter, right?
Sure, it could be.
Did not accept or did not do the recommendations.
Right.
Made by the board.
We couldn't, it wouldn't be a violation by itself that you didn't do these things. So we're going to impose sanction because you didn't follow the letter. It's going to be, hey, you were advised you should do these things so you wouldn't come back before us. Did you do any of these things? Because, we were hoping you would, so that we wouldn't see you again.
Okay.
That sounds to me like a compromise between options number 1. And I like it.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion again. Let's just do the number 1. Have him move forward. Stop it. Have him move forward with the application process, but I'd like that letter of advisement to include like the quarterly reports, the ethics, and really, I believe in you, Mr. Tennyson. I believe that if we don't have the superpowers to enforce it, I believe you'll still come through. That's just me. And I just
Thank
want to put it out there. I've spoken into existence.
Can you clarify the number of ethics that is there a number that you were thinking?
That question would probably be for her.
Dr. Bradley, the ethics hours that you would want to see.
I would want an average of 2 per year, maybe over 2 years. I was going to try to find a way to combine my concern with Janie's concern that, you know, in the reporting that maybe the supervisor would report that ethics and other issues that you had in mind. Patrick, I'm wondering if the letter, and I don't know if the board would agree with that, but if they were to agree, that way we would have some reporting from Randall Duncan, the proposed supervisor. I think that's what Janie was asking. I'm just trying to get the concerns in a manageable way here. So maybe that's it.
So Dr. Bradley, you're saying if the supervisor is reviewing those ethics and reporting it, that would satisfy your desire?
No, I still would like him to take, I don't know the exact number, but I would recommend, I understand we can't say he must, but I would recommend an average of 2 CEUs a year for the next 2 years.
Okay. So Ms. Campanone has made a motion. You want to state it one more time?
All right, so here goes. So Dr. Loretta Bradley is basically saying that she would like for the supervisor to present a report on how he's doing regarding ethics, supervision, and I believe Janie or Dr. Stubblefield. Yeah, congrats, by the way, is also wanting to do the same. So that's what's included in my motion, still sending out a letter of advisement, but including those things.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Dr. Bradley seconds this motion. Any discussion on this version of the motion?
Well, Mr. Chair, I'm confused. How are we sending a letter of advisement to this individual to have his supervisor send us quarterly reports? Is that what we're asking for? We're advising him to tell his supervisor to give us quarterly reports. Is that the request?
That is our preference, that we see quarterly reports.
Okay.
Who would draft this letter? Patrick?
It would come from staff. I don't know, either the licensing manager or myself or somebody. Yeah.
Okay. Do we need to specifically state right here what we want to see, our criteria?
I have a general outline of it. So I think I have the crux of what you're looking for, I think.
Quarterly reports, 2 hours in ethics annually, and
continued treatment for the
continued treatment
as needed.
As needed.
Okay. So we do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion before we vote?
I think Vanessa had her hand up.
Go ahead, Vanessa.
Yes, I was wondering, is that part of the supervisor's responsibility to take on the additional auditing of the ethics and submit those quarterly reports? Would this be additional work for the supervisor? Or is this just part of their responsibility to Mr. Tennyson?
The supervisor should be keeping regular notes that would form the basis of a quarterly report. And so the extra work would be writing a letter. I don't think the expectation that we're hearing from y'all is that the supervisor do additional supervision above and beyond what a normal supervision relationship is, but simply take those notes and that experience and summate it quarterly.
Okay.
That's
Can I ask another question?
if he chooses to follow the advisement.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Vanessa.
So with that in mind, would Mr. Tennyson have to initiate these courses, or are we asking him? I know it's blanketed that he takes 2 a year. Do we really care about when he takes those courses? Would the supervisor help to manage that, or is this all self-initiation?
Sounds like self-initiation. for him.
Self-initiation.
Thank you.
Okay. At this time, we're going to vote. I will state the motion one last time. The motion is to accept the past LCDC surrender, and allow staff to continue with the LPC associate application process following the drafting and receipt of an advisory letter with the board's recommendations. Okay. All in favor, please raise your hand. State aye.
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 And what was Vanessa? I didn't see her.
I didn't raise my hand.
Okay. And all opposed? One in opposition, and any abstain? And one abstain. Okay. Mr. Tennyson or Mr. Worcester, any questions for us before we let you go?
No, I don't believe that we have any further questions. I think this has been discussed, thoroughly enough that myself, as well as Mr. Tennyson, probably clearly understand that this is a strong advisement to continue to do what he's continuing to already do, which I believe he's planning on keeping up and self-educating himself in whatever way or shape or manner that would benefit himself to be a better counselor, so that he is better to the public also.
Correct. Thank you. Christina, you will be in contact with him?
Yes, I'll reach out to you for next steps. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And the third appellant is Mr. Vias.
Vaciletos, I think.
Vaciletos. Is he in here in person?
Vaciletos. No, I believe he's online also.
Okay. Will you, Christine, will you outline the appeal, and then we will hear from him?
Yes, so this applicant is Ian Vaciletos. So this was denied based on, let's see. Oh, sorry. He was wanting to reinstate his Texas LPC license. He had a complaint that was closed with a surrender order back in June of 2017. The information was included in your board packet material. And this is another case where the board needs to determine if we accept the past surrender and allow reinstate of full licensure, include stipulations if you all decide to allow to reinstate with full licensure, or deny the application for reinstatement. And I believe he is here. Let me.
And he will get 3 minutes to speak.
Correct.
Not sure if he has counsel.
I do not believe so.
Okay. 3 minutes.
Okay, hold just a sec. Ian Vaciletos, is this you?
It sure is, and it's Basileros. It's Greek, not Spanish. It's a common
Sorry.
mistake. Okay.
All right. And to confirm, you do not have counsel, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate the chance to come before you. I'm actually really excited about this. A little over a decade ago, as a intern, I ended up with a borderline personality disorder client, and it took a little bit of time to really suss out that that's what was going on. But there were numerous boundary crosses in the process of working with her. I worked with my supervisor the entire time, and I always took his advice on what to do. And basically what happened is I belong to a church that uses geographical boundaries for determining where you attend church. So when she informed me that she was moving into the geographical boundaries of my particular church, I told her I had to terminate sessions with her. So I went to transfer her to another therapist. And this is probably the biggest mistake I made in the entire process. My instincts were screaming at me that she was listening in. I did not act on that. Ended up, she left her purse in the office and was recording all the sessions with the counselor I was sending to, all of our conversations in between, and then the additional sessions with her husband and her kids. She recorded the whole thing, and I did not act on that. Dumb, very dumb. And I should have listened to my instincts on that. But anyways, long story short, the whole thing got terminated. She got very upset because the transfer didn't go through. She moved into my church and then actively targeted my wife, trying to befriend her after telling her, you may not do this. This is not appropriate. We will be distant but friendly. And so she targeted my wife, targeted my wife's best friend, and tried to weave her way into our lives. We ended up going to a different church, which took some doing because we still lived in the same place. Had to get special permission from upper leadership in the church. And she ambushed me in the parking lot multiple times. She ambushed my supervisor. It was a nightmare. Well, she put in my supervisor told me to tell my wife that she was a client, so my wife knew to stay away. She got very upset about that and presented a complaint to the board, a 16-page complaint. There was a lot more than just that, but that was the heart of it. Was she insisted it was a breach of confidentiality. I followed my supervisor's advice on all of it. And then by the time the investigation actually came to fruition, I was in the middle of a divorce and moving from the state. I had no money, no time. My practice had dissolved around me because we're a very family-oriented church. Hearing that I was getting divorced, my practice almost disappeared overnight. And so I surrendered my license. I didn't have any other options. I had nothing else I could do. I was going to let it expire anyway. And so we moved, and now I'm coming back saying, hey, I want my license back. And I would love to be able to, do telehealth. I think I live in Idaho, so I'm a long ways away. I want to be able to do telehealth, and I would love to have this expunged from my record since I was not admitting guilt. I was in a divorce and couldn't deal with it.
Okay, thank you. Board, any questions for the appellant? Dr. Stubblefield, go ahead.
I'm going to attempt it. Mr. Vasileros?
Vasileros, very good. Yes, I've heard it slaughtered a zillion times over my life.
Are you currently licensed in Idaho?
No, I because this has been sitting on Texas with a pending investigation. I haven't tried to get licensed anywhere else. I've just been doing the life coach thing for about 7 years. And then I'm like, well, it's time to get my license back. I want to go do this.
How far along were you in your LPC associate or intern at the time license? How many hours had you accumulated?
When the investigation happened, when I gave it my license?
Yes, sir.
Oh, no, it had been completed. All of this happened with this client while I was an intern, but I had been licensed for 2-3 years when I actually moved. So the internship was done, and I was a full licensure.
Okay, but the transfer of the client occurred
while I was an intern.
While you were an intern, and so the complaint was regarding behaviors while you were an intern.
That's correct. And like I said, I counseled with my supervisor the entire time. I did everything he told me to do.
Do we have records from that upgrade in terms of what the supervisor might have said?
The supervisors wouldn't have said anything unless they had reservations. Let me see if I can find, I have all of the hours. Let me see if I show anything about any problems.
Patrick, just a clarification, the complaint was never adjudicated, it was never resolved.
Well, it looked like the order
surrendered
is he
it.
just surrendered his license.
While it was pending, so there was never any outcome to that complaint.
I mean, the outcome is his license was suspended or surrendered. So, I mean, it's.
But as far as like the complaints committee, I mean, we didn't hear that case. We didn't actually enter in a judgment.
Well, I mean, the judgment is in June of 2017, so it was before it came over to BHEC. But
right.
I mean, the final adjudication is it's like resigned in lieu is what we call it now. So it would be we accept the surrender of your license, and then we're not going to further adjudicate it. Sure, but
Yeah, Yeah, but what I mean is that we never,
The complaints committee never heard it
yeah.
because he surrendered before it got to that.
So we never validated any of the complaint is
Yeah.
what I'm asking. Okay.
Correct. Okay, so this is the first one that I have, great skills and appropriate use of therapy. Let's see if the other one says anything.
With that file, do you have his logs?
No, we don't ask for logs unless there's some issues going on, but we don't ask for logs. And that was signed in 2013, September of 2013. Yeah. That's the only one I have right here. The experience form. Oh, here's another one. Hold on, let me see. This one had no issues. Everything was good. Let's see. This one, here's another one actually. This one's from November of 2010. Responds well to supervision, believes that with continued supervision and guidance will be competent to hold a license to practice counseling. I think that was all the supervisors that he had. So I don't see anything. And it would have come to the board or committee or whatever point we were to review if there were any reservations, but I see nothing that past supervisors had reservations.
Go ahead, Brenda.
Hello, sir. I don't want to trash your last name. I know how that feels. So I wanted, are you currently living in Idaho?
Yes, I am.
And so why are you wanting to get licensed in Texas?
Well, so that's a good question. The main reason is I can't get, because of this investigation and there is this thing against my license where I surrendered it, there is no state that will let me get licensed anywhere else. I have to resolve this before I can do anything else. One. Two is when I left the state, telehealth was not really a thing. That's why I allowed my license to surrender. I'm like, my entire practice has dissolved around me. All of my contacts are gone. And so I'm moving anyway. I'm in the middle of a divorce. So I'm just going to let the license go, right? But now COVID changed the world. And so now I have the ability to do telehealth actively. And because I've been doing life coaching for a while, I've got a HIPAA compliant platform. I've been doing this for 7 years. And so I am fully capable and able to reach out and start doing telehealth in Texas, in addition to being able to now apply for other states, including Idaho, that I plan to get a license in and start practicing here as well.
Okay, but you're going to stay living in Idaho?
Correct.
So you want to obtain a license from Texas to practice out of Idaho to do telehealth?
Yes, I'm actually going to focus on telehealth. That's correct. And because I can't get a license anywhere else until this is resolved, that's why I'm coming back and saying, like, I have to get this roadblock out of the way so I can actually move forward with my life.
So are you saying that Idaho is wanting you to obtain Texas licensure before they'll give you before they'll give you an Idaho license?
I'm saying that every single state I looked at said, if you have a pending investigation or a disciplinary action that has not been resolved, then we can't give you a license. Go take care of that first. And I've been in communication with several states about this. So that's why I'm coming back. And I do have some contacts in Texas as well that I absolutely plan to go do some telehealth. I've got some companies I'm going to be signing up for. If I'm licensed in Texas, they will give me people to help.
I guess I'm confused because you don't have an open investigation in Texas and you do not have an open complaint in Texas.
Right, but because this complaint happened and I surrendered my license, and that's actually something that I'm trying to get resolved. And I have asked some of the states about that. And they said, yeah, because of this complaint, that then you surrendered your license. You don't have a license. We have no reason to give you a license. So once you have an active license, once you've resolved this and have an active license again, then you can now progress forward and ask us to be able to be licensed in our states. That's been, as I've talked to Idaho specifically, that's what's come back. And so that's why I'm trying to get this taken care of.
Do you have a formal judgment from Idaho rejecting your application for licensure?
No, because I never applied. All I did was I sent them an email, said, this is the situation. And there was a phone call or two along the way as I looked into this. And that was sort of like, you probably should go take care of this before even go apply to us.
Is it possible for him to submit something in writing from another state rejecting him becoming licensed based on what has happened in Texas? Just so we can have more than just his word on it?
Oh, well, so
Okay.
can,
Let me just weigh in that it is an applicant here in Texas for license. We need to judge on the merits of the application or reinstatement for here, whether or not there are collateral consequences in another state, and whether another state has or has not, or would not give them a license is not part of the jurisdiction of the board.
Okay,
So
okay.
I'm not saying it wouldn't be nice to have that, and if they had denied, certainly helpful. But I don't think you as the board should consider whether or not to go with reinstatement based on its potential or non-potential impacts in Idaho or another state.
Okay, makes sense.
Okay.
So I guess regardless of what he's trying to do in Idaho, the Texas board needs to decide if you are wanting to reinstate his license, his Texas license.
Well, I mean, my chief concern is that the reason why he wants to be licensed here is that he believes that that will then allow him to be licensed somewhere else, which, I mean, may or may not be correct, but I don't see how that's beneficial entirely for the population, for the public of the state of Texas. So that's a reservation I have. I hear council's advice on saying, hey, we need to not consider that. We just need to look at the application and say, does this merit approval? The motivation just seems confusing to me. The logic just doesn't seem right. 100%.
Can I address that?
Yes, go ahead.
So I'm planning on working in Texas. It could be months before I get anything back from another state. And I am absolutely, I mean, today I have a phone call I will be making depending on what the board's decision is. And I will be moving forward immediately to get work in Texas. There are companies, there's one called Therify, there's a couple others that if you're licensed in a state, they will send you telehealth people, and I will be absolutely working in Texas as rapidly as possible. I'm currently working in corporate America. I'm doing the life coaching thing nights and weekends, and I frankly don't love corporate America, and I want to get back to doing what I love doing and what I'm best at. And so Texas is high on my, I mean, it's going to be my only state I'm licensed in at first. And I absolutely intend to jump in with both feet and do everything I can to help people in Texas to move forward and do my counseling thing with them. Anyway, so
Go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, what I assume is probably what's happening is what it sounds like is the other states are saying, we don't necessarily want to give you a license because you lost your license in Texas. So if you were able to come back to another state and say, hey, Texas has either issued my license or issued it with conditions, that would weigh heavily in favor of the other state looking and saying, okay, we maybe not going to deny your application. We might give you a license or give you a license with conditions, terms and stipulations. So that's what I think that's what the disconnect is, and possibly.
Yeah, no, I hear that, Patrick. I would just rather the other process where he applies in Idaho and then Idaho asks us what happened, and then we can send in a letter or our thoughts or opinions on why it was surrendered, and then they can make their choice.
Yeah, I mean, typically in those situations, we would just give them a copy of the order.
Yeah, exactly.
That's because that usually sums up everything.
Okay.
So I have, I think, layers of reservations. First, because the board did not hear this initially, we don't have any context in turn. I mean, he just gave his license up. And so we didn't go through the full investigation and discipline process. And so with that information missing, I feel a little blind.
Yeah, well, so what I will say is our current resigned in lieu orders are structured differently, and so they have more information on them so that it's kind of all self-contained. What I will say is this is a final resolution, so it is a disciplinary order, so it is
Yes.
resolved, and it was, while it didn't go through the full investigative process to maybe suss out all the issues and facts, it was, there's a complaint pending and they just said, I'm going to not fight anymore and resign it. So I think I get your point. This order doesn't have all the details that you're
Right.
looking for, just a
To be able to say-
confidentiality violation.
Right, that it's just a he said, she said,
Mhm.
and we just don't have the details of that.
But that would happen as part of the reinstatement application process, correct?
Well, yeah, I mean, the reinstatement process is so if they were whatever license they previously had, they'd come in with that same license. So since he was an LPC instead of an LPCA, he would come in as an LPC. He's reinstating that same license. So we wouldn't go back and say, no, we're going to give you an associate license. Like you already had it, but we would look at we're doing that work right now because part of that process is, okay, you lost your license. Why did you lose your license? What were the issues surrounding the loss of your license? And then, do we want to grant the license or grant it with conditions or deny it?
But we
So,
wouldn't go back and then investigate this.
not from a complaint that was filed in 2013. I
Right.
mean, we would ask the information about it, but I don't know if we have information to even reach out to the complainants and get information from them. So we wouldn't do a new investigation.
Right, and that's where my reservation is we don't have any of that information to be able to contextualize, what was going on from that license point. He just gave up his license. And so that I sit with a reservation because of that lacking information, that missing information through that process.
Yeah, the finding is just he
just gave it up.
he gave it up, but the board did determine that he violated those confidentiality rules. It just didn't go into the facts surrounding,
Okay.
that. So there is a finding of a specific violation that's listed in the order. It just doesn't give you any of the context that you're looking for that says he did the following acts A, B, and C, and those, like, we would lay it out, and we would have a finding of facts and conclusions of law in our current orders.
And would that happen as part of the reinstatement process?
Well, if we did an eligibility order, we could say, he came before us, he had a previous order, and, because of that previous order, we're willing to reinstate him, but he's reinstated with, he has to do a year of supervision or whatever terms and condition the board might.
And so this will probably come back to us.
No, we would do that now if we
Would?
wanted
Okay.
to do that.
Yeah.
Robert?
I was just going to recommend that to your point, Dr. Stubblefield, of how it was resolved. I think a helpful way that y'all can think about this is, given that what is that the board found breach of confidentiality, had it gone through the disciplinary process, based on what you have said as sanctions now, what might have been an appropriate sanction, and consider how that would have played out till today. Would a breach of confidentiality, if everything the complainant had said was true, worst case scenario, would that have resulted in revocation such that you want to deny licensure in this case? Or would it have resulted in some sort of suspension or some sort of ethics requirements?
I mean, I doubt it would have reached a 7-year suspension.
Yeah.
That seems unlikely. Danny, are you concerned are you trying to think through if he did something wrong? Like if he should
No.
have? No, okay.
No.
No.
No, just processing through.
Gotcha.
I'm gonna pull up our
So,
sanction.
Give me
matrix.
your gut thought on this, those of you that do the disciplinary hearings. If the facts were as exactly as he has stated, and this would happen right now, what would his likely punishment be?
I'm pulling up the matrix as quickly as I can.
As I'm being honest with y'all, this one seems very understandable given all the circumstances. And yes, I get we only have his point of view, but all this in my mind is pretty reasonable on the chain of events that occurred.
May I say something really quick?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. I want to really stress that when this investigation was started, I had no fear of anything really serious because I didn't do anything wrong. I made a couple of small mistakes. I counseled with my supervisor through the whole thing. I'll be completely transparent about everything. I have all the documentation. I have her 16-page complaint. I have my 80-page response to the whole thing. I had no fear of the investigation. The investigation came while I was getting divorced and moving from the state. I gave up my license not because I was admitting guilt. There was no determination by the board that I'd done anything wrong. That was just the accusation that I'd made. And I'm like, I can't fight this. I have no money, no ability, no time. I am stressed out of my mind already. I don't have any other options. And I'll note, and I have all the emails for this. Well, this was a conversation. Oscar Drawn was the name of the investigator. And I asked him, I said, look, what do I do? He says, if you give up your license, then in 5 years or something like that, it'll just drop off. I'm like, really? Like, it'll just go away? And he says, yes, absolutely. I said, you're sure? He says, yes. Okay. All right. So when I gave up my license, it was the understanding like, look, this will go away on its own after a time. So when I called back later to get the exact time frame and I was told this would never drop off, I was like, what? This isn't going to drop off? And so now I'm coming back saying, look, I was misinformed. I acted in good faith on what I'd been told by the investigator. And I didn't do anything wrong. It was not an admission of guilt. That was the accusation. There was no determination by anybody that I had done anything wrong. And I will go back to my documentation and say, look, if the investigation was reopened, might come back to like, okay, yeah, you made a mistake. You opened your mouth and said something relatively small here. Let's do some extra whatever. I mean, I'm not going to guess what would have happened, but it was nothing major. She was borderline and flipped out and made all kinds of unbased accusations towards me, and I have an 80-page response to her 16-page complaint. Anyway, I wanted to make sure that was clear.
And thank you. Dr. Stubblefield, did you look at the penalty matrix?
I was advised.
Oh, okay.
I did.
The level 4 probated suspension for
Yeah.
confidentiality. For confidentiality violations, it's a L4 probated suspension is the standard sanction for confidentiality.
All right. And then we would have considered the mitigating circumstances, the accusation by who it was made, who we told, that it was church, that it was.
Yeah, that could have lowered it down to a reprimand, or could have.
I mean, it could have been a warning letter.
It could have been a warning letter, or there
Yeah.
could have been aggravating circumstances. It could have made it worse. So,
All right.
yeah.
Again, based on what he said, at the worst, I probably would have recommended a warning letter.
I think though, we don't need to worry about re-adjudicating the matter, because the actual surrender of his license is the adjudication. He's been not licensed for the past 7 years or so, if the math is correct on that. So really what this is that we can use that surrender of his license as a basis to deny his reinstatement. It's really just a matter of, do we really want to deny his reinstatement, or do we want to just approve his reinstatement, or do we want to approve it with conditions? And it's really something that staff themselves can't necessarily say we're going to waive an order that somebody lost their license. So it's really sort of something that typically comes to the board.
Okay.
As a public member, what stipulations would you, the professional members, place on this case, if any?
You love stipulations.
I have a quick comment. I just have a quick comment. Look, I'm not even there yet with the stipulations. I feel like this is not even a Texas thing, to be honest. Even though somebody else is telling him that he needs to get that taken care of here. I feel like just as we are a board, he has a board to go to. They could have made stipulations. Okay, we know something's happened, but we're gonna do a year or two of whatever. I just don't feel like it's a Texas thing. So I'm not even at the stipulation point. So for me, I can table it, or just, I don't know. I'm just not there.
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree. Can we do this? Can we separate it into two and just say, do we want to approve it or not, and then talk about stipulations?
You're usually not one that wants to make things more complicated.
I feel like it's making it simpler.
I've known you for
Just
many
we can
years.
just have this discussion of should we approve it or not, and then we can have the discussion of should we add things
Would
to
like
it.
to make a motion?
Okay, I think based off what our attorneys are saying, I mean, the logic here for me is that we have somebody who had a resolved disciplinary action that is now coming back following the basic guidelines we would have for anything else, reapplying for their license. It's been 7 years. That would have been the same, what's more than what we would have issued as punishment on the highest level of this. So I say I'd like to make a motion that we approve his license with reservation that we can add stipulations at a second vote.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'll second it. Okay. Any discussion on this motion? So again, state what the second part of this would be that we
will then have a discussion on if we want to add stipulations, supervision or, CEs or whatever Dr. Bradley's going to want or Janie's going to want.
You're making assumptions.
Okay. We have a motion and I seconded it. Is there any discussion regarding Dr. Taylor's motion?
I have a question. So Dr. Taylor, let's just say that we agree with your motion and we don't know any viable stipulations. Would that mean that his license would be reinstated, carte blanche?
The way I see this is part A, and then, we'll approve or deny. We just want to get on the same page on if we want to approve or deny this. And then if we agree on approving it, we'll go to part B, which is a discussion of now would we like to add stipulations?
Lawyers, can we do this?
Yes. We won't consider the vote final until you've settled the second question.
So Robert, am I like in danger of having a decent idea here?
Possibly.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay.
Cats and dogs living together. Just crazy.
All right. All in favor of approving part A, please raise your hand. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. What was your vote, Dr. Bradley?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay. That is 5 in favor. All those opposed? Dr. Stubblefield in opposition, and Dr. Bradley abstains. Okay. So we will now move on to part B, the possible stipulations. Dr. Taylor, any stipulations that you'd like to introduce?
None at this time.
Okay. Dr. Stubblefield, since you voted against it in the first place, are there any stipulations that you would feel comfortable with?
I mean, I want some supervision. I want to be able to have him be accountable to somebody who's then going to report to the board. All I have is this agreed order, and in the agreed order, it says there are findings. And so I have to believe that this order is accurate. And so I don't know. We haven't even asked him what he's done since then in terms of remediation of this issue.
Then let me ask you this. What stipulations would it take for you to vote for it, if any? And if you're not going to, then we're going to have to discuss other options.
Well, I mean, it sounds like, if I can sort of read your mind, is you were thinking along lines of the sanction would have been a probated suspension under the guidelines if it had been adjudicated under the schedule of sanctions at the time. So if what you're asking for is to approve him but do an order that puts him on probated suspension, I mean, that's something that could be done, but it would have to be an eligibility order that we would do that under, I guess. And if we want to do that, we'd need to know how long and if there's any other conditions. So I just wanted to put that out there because it seemed like that was what you were maybe thinking. So
And to Ms. Compagnone's comment, this individual is not a Texas resident.
Let me hop in there though. We issue licenses to people all over the country and all over the world, and residency is not a requirement.
Yeah, and I don't think that that's where I was going with it. I was just wondering, he's a resident of Idaho, but will be doing telehealth in Texas. So I just have my reservations about that. I still feel like it's not a Texas thing. I think this could have been addressed with another board, and it's taken a lot of our time today.
So, Dr. Stubblefield, what would it take, if anything?
Well, you don't need my vote, first of all, because you're voting.
I want to hear all the opinions.
I mean, I want to have a layer of a probated suspension where we've got some supervision and some accountability, quarterly reporting, which is typical.
Okay. Board, is there any other discussion?
Oh, I abstained because I wasn't sure what the next motion was going to be.
Okay.
And having heard what Dr. Stubblefield said, I concur with what she's saying. Some stipulations here, supervision, for example.
Probated suspension for certain length of time?
Patrick, what's the?
I mean, it's 1 year, 2 years. It's kind of, it doesn't, it's kind of the board's discretion. I don't know that there's not a hard rule about it has to be this amount or that amount. So it just oftentimes, again, that's where we take the facts of the case into consideration to make that determination. I don't know if I have a strong feeling about it, it should be a year or 2 years.
Okay. Would you like to make a Part B motion? No. No?
I'll let Janie do it.
Dr. Stubblefield, would you like to make a motion?
Seeing as how I voted against the first motion, I don't know how I could make a motion.
I'm viewing it as you were kind of taking the approach that Dr. Bradley took the approach.
No, I voted against the motion. I didn't abstain.
Gotcha.
I understood my vote.
Okay. Then, if we're going to consider Part B here, someone has to make a motion. Anyone?
Can we make a motion to table this item?
Oh, can the chair make a motion?
The chair can make a motion. So what this would be considered is that you've previously made and adopted what we'll call a sort of standing order of approval. And what the second motion would essentially be is adding an amendment onto that motion in separate votes, but treating it as though, okay, we've set this part A, here it is. Now the question is, do we amend it by adding stipulations? And so, as you said, someone would need to make a motion to amend that approval, but no one has to make a motion. If no one makes a motion, then
it's
it's just goes on and is approved, and that's fine.
Okay.
But anyone can make a motion suggesting an amendment to that approval.
Okay. Any questions for Robert on that? That was well explained. Thank you.
So you're saying no to my motion to table the item?
If you wanted to do that, that's actually a motion to reconsider and lay on the table. And so it would have to be made by somebody who approved the motion in the first place.
Mhm.
And I would have to look back at my Robert's Rules of Order, whether it requires a 2/3 vote or not. But that's a different motion. That is a motion to reconsider.
Okay, so I had approved the motion, but I want to abstain. I'm just not comfortable with this. I'm just not.
I have a question. I abstain, and I think if I'm remembering Robert's Rules of Order, I can't make a Plan B motion because you have to affirm the first motion, right?
if you were abstaining from if we had treated this like a normal legislative vote, perhaps, but since we separated it into 2 votes, you abstained on the first vote. That does not disqualify you. This isn't like election rules where if you didn't vote in the first election, you can't vote in the runoff. You are all eligible to make a motion and vote however you wish on this second item. There's no disqualification there.
Okay.
But wasn't the heart of Dr. Taylor's motion for us to approve it with stipulations part A and B? So aren't we knowingly working towards stipulations or no?
So I just wanted to see if we were on the same page of approving or denying. That was the intent, and then to have a discussion after that of if we wanted to add stipulations and what those stipulations would be.
Okay.
I can make a motion then.
You can make a motion.
All right.
If no motion is made, then it's approved.
Okay. Then I will try this motion. I move that we discuss and determine stipulations and that those stipulations would involve supervision.
Okay. Dr. Bradley has made a motion. Is there a second?
Can we have some clarification on her motion? Dr. Bradley, what are you requesting specifically?
I was just following up on what I agreed, as I'd said earlier, with what Janie said, that there would be additional reports from the supervisor, perhaps on a monthly basis the first year.
Do you have stipulations on the frequency of supervision?
I wasn't planning to make any stipulations. I was going at the end of the month in my mind when we got that report. If it all looked good, continue, move forward. If it didn't look good, there were concerns, then contact the supervisor and at that point determine what needs to be made.
So since he's not in supervision, we probably need to, if we are going to require quarterly reports from a supervisor, would need to set some expectation of frequency of supervision since he's not an associate. So what would you like that frequency to be?
I would think that frequency would be, did you have I don't want to overstep what you had in mind. Okay. I would say the first year supervision, to average an hour a week. However, it could be for the total month, 4 hours or 2 and 2. Just some monitoring is all I want. I'm just throwing that out, but I don't hear a second, so this may die.
Okay. So may I rephrase just to make sure we as staff have this would be a motion to add an eligibility order stipulating supervision for a period of 1 year to include 4 hours of supervision a month with monthly reports to the board by the supervisor.
Let me amend that. Let me say 2 hours a month instead of 4. I'm not trying to make it laborious. I just want for the welfare of the clients and everyone involved that we've made an order that we want some supervision, some oversight.
And was it monthly reports or quarterly reports that you were asking?
I would go with whatever you would recommend. I was thinking monthly, but if you think quarterly is what we usually do, I'm okay with that. I'm not trying to put extra work on the board. I'm just trying to make sure the clients that are served, that we've protected their welfare.
Typically, a lot of the orders where they have reporting are usually quarterly. Now, if there's somebody that you feel like we need to take a closer watch,
then let's
it's
go
a
with
monthly.
quarterly. I'm
Yeah.
okay with that.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. Second by Ms. Campanone. Discussion on the specific motion.
Dr. Bradley, would you be comfortable amending that to state 2 hours or at the supervisor's directive?
Yes. In other words, what you're suggesting, Dr. Taylor, it might be 2 hours, it could be less, it could be more. The
Correct.
directive would be that overview that I'm wanting.
Yes.
So yes, I'm fine.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. Hearing none, we will go ahead and take a vote on the amended motion. All in favor, please raise your hand and signify aye.
Aye.
And okay, motion passes. Christina, any instructions for the appellant before we're going to take a break here in a second?
Yes, I'll be reaching out to you with more information. Thank you for being here.
Okay, the time is 10:42. We're going to take a 5-minute break. Thank you.
Can you confirm for me that these
We're recording.
It is now 10:54 and we are back in session. Moving on to item number 4, public comment. Christina, we have a list of those who are here in person. Will you get us started, please?
Yes.
Public comment, you have 3 minutes.
The first person we have is Diane Smedley. You can go to the table here.
Both of those microphones are working?
Yes, as far as I understand, yes.
Yeah, Greg confirmed it. Thanks.
All right. Okay, here we go. Good morning, Chair Hallbauer, fellow board members, and staff. My name is Dr. Diane Smedley. I'm a licensed professional counselor, licensed marriage and family therapist, and a counselor educator. In addition to that, though, I do serve as the liaison to the Texas LPC Board for the Texas Association for Counselor Education and Supervision. TASIS is the division for TCA that is dedicated to strengthening counselor education and supervision. And I'm grateful today to make public comment and just grateful for your continuous hard work on behalf of the citizens of Texas. So to begin, I want to thank Dr. Bradley, Dr. Stubblefield, Dr. Taylor, and Ms. DeLuna for coming to our TASIS Midwinter Conference back in February. As always, our members greatly appreciate the opportunity to meet with board members and to learn about important issues that are impacting our profession. Additionally, a special thank you to Ms. DeLuna, who hosted a booth and answered all of our licensing questions. It's greatly appreciated. On behalf of TASIS membership, we are excited to collaborate with board members and other stakeholders during our 4-year rule review process. We are looking forward to the town hall in August. Additionally, I did want to note in the initial findings, there's a future consideration to remove the 2-year expiration date on the 40-hour training course. In alignment with this consideration, multiple TASIS members have reached out to inquire about the removal of the 5-year expiration date on the doctoral supervision course. So in consideration of removing the 40-hour expiration date, we are asking that the board members include the removal of the expiration date for the doctoral course. Removal of that 5-year expiration date will help streamline supervision application processes. It'll also remove a costly barrier to becoming a supervisor. Because, right, if you take the course and then it's 7 years later, you have to pay to take the course again. And by eliminating that, you'll increase the opportunity for there to be more licensed supervisors out there. With that said, though, in closing, thank you again for the opportunity to make these comments today and for everything that you do for our state.
Thank you. Really appreciate your rules suggestion. Robert, do we have that on our list?
We do.
Okay. Good to hear.
Next person we'll hear from is Dr. Lori Hollingsworth.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair Hallbauer and board members and staff. Thank you for this opportunity to offer public comments and to be in person today. I am Dr. Lori Hollingsworth. I'm a licensed professional counselor and supervisor and counselor educator. I currently serve as the president of the Texas Mental Health Counselors Association, which is a division of the Texas Counseling Association and a state chapter of the American Mental Health Counselors Association. TMCA is a vibrant counseling association with a little over 500 members in the state of Texas, spanning all borders. Our membership includes licensed professional counselors, licensed professional counselors associates, counselor educators, and graduate students. In April of this year, TMCA had its annual conference, and we're very delighted and grateful for the participation and attendance of Christine DeLuna, Dr. Loretta Bradley, and Dr. Janie Stubblefield, and Brenda Capagonia. They joined us and they offered input and interacted with our members, and we greatly appreciate that. One thing I'm interested in today is learning more about how the board will disseminate information about the 2024 rule review leading up to the town hall meeting, and just how the licensed professional counselors can have input, maybe up to them, because do we have to wait till at that time to have input, or can we provide input before then? POMCA does encourage the board to continue the practice of counselors practicing 5 years before they apply to be a supervisor. And TOMCA supports the rules that promote high quality training and high standards for licensed professionals here in Texas. In addition, when I was looking over the LPC initial findings that were posted, I did not see anything noted about artificial intelligence, AI. It seems that AI has taken the world by storm, and this is now very much on the front steps and knocking at the door of the counseling profession. In some ways, it has already entered some counseling sessions, and I think that's where it's going, but I'm just curious if the board will be addressing that at some point.
20 seconds.
I want to express my appreciation for the board's time today and the ongoing positive atmosphere that the board promotes within the board's meetings. It is observed, noted, and greatly appreciate how y'all conduct the board meetings. I do applaud your commitment and dedication in serving the citizens of the state of Texas, and thank you for hearing and considering the public comments today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hollingsworth.
Yeah.
Robert will be educating us on the rules review process here in a little while, so we'll get that for you. But on AI, I do want to talk about that for a second. We have 681.41G, right, which does allow for technological communications in the therapeutic process. So we definitely allow and encourage our people to use technology. Right now, we just have it set up to follow the same, all the same rules apply, right? All of 681 applies. So that's where we are right now. We'll continue to monitor it though, for sure. And if there is, like if TCA or American Counseling Association or somebody comes out with a guideline that they think would be helpful, we would love to see it and would be happy to review it.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next person we have is Kathleen Mills.
My name is Kathleen Mills. I'm a licensed professional counselor supervisor. I am also the co-founder of the Association for Mental Health Professionals. Things have dramatically improved since the inception of BHEC almost 4 years ago. The good news is the board is no longer in control of administrative duties, including the complaint process and licensing approval issues. The 3-year backlog of complaint cases have completely been addressed. 95% of all complaints are dismissed as having no basis to pursue, and that we now have a penalty matrix to objectively mete out punishment versus the subjective good old boy days of the past. But the fact that pleases me the most is this. In the last BHEC fiscal year, 110 complaints survived the initial BHEC stat review and went on to some form of disciplinary action. That means that 70,000 licensees, less than 0.16 of 1% of all counselors, received an official reprimand of some sort. So, how well are licensees doing at policing their own activities? The answer is less than 1/6 of 1% of all counselors had to go to timeout in some form or fashion. That means two things: that we're doing a pretty damn good job of self-policing. Wouldn't you agree? And it means that going forward, no additional ethics or regulations are required related to issues that see complaints being filed. There are no problems left to fix. I'm suggesting that we're overregulated in another area, which I'll call counselor improvement. I want the board to stay out of my career plans, where I get my continuing education, and how I spend my money. Protecting Joe Citizen can't be used as justification for counselor improvement regulations because citizens are not filing legitimate complaints against us for not being diverse or woke enough, or for being too white, or improper pronoun usage, or not taking our continuing education from academia's preferred sources. or for not knowing enough about proper telehealth procedures, or for not having PhD on our license. I don't take my marching orders from academia or their bedfellows, including accrediting institutions, professional organizations that promote their twisted social agendas, or self-appointed think tanks
20
like
seconds.
WPATH looking to systematically alter general standards of care in our profession, which are currently going to hell in a handbasket. I want my licensing board to restrict themselves to ethics, defined as what's in my rule book and the codes outlined on page 40. Your state mandate is to protect Joe Citizen, not make me conform to a moral, ethical practice standard developed by self-appointed entities I've already mentioned. I want to challenge you to reduce the number of pages in my rule book by at least 10 during your quadrennial review.
Ms.
Thank
Mills.
you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Challenge accepted.
Game on.
Let's
You
do
did a
it.
great job, Dr. Taylor, today.
Thank you.
I want more of that.
Let's do it.
Please.
Let's do it.
Next person we have is Philip Crum.
Philip, since you're coming down, I just want to say, so nice to put a face to your voice. I have since COVID wondered what you look like.
Oh. Not sure what to do with that. All right. Well, my name is Philip Crum, but you can call me Joe Citizen today because I am not a counselor. I am the co-founder and Kathleen's partner in the Association for Mental Health Professionals. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit today about, especially the public members, about accountability. My thoughts on the rulemaking process need to be directed to the council, but I will say this today, that the council is broken. It only works as a checks and balances measure when members from one board hold members from the other boards accountable and seriously question the need for any proposed rule. A checks and balances system produces friction. We need council members like John Blamowitz of the Psych Board who don't mind asking the hard questions and dealing with friction to achieve the desired outcome. Now that said, and you really threw my thing off here for today, kudos to you, Dr. Taylor, especially for initiating the friction earlier in the meeting and sticking to your beliefs. We greatly appreciate that. Bring that type of accountability to the council process, to the council level. I have more to say on the rulemaking process, but I'll save that for the council meeting. What I really want to talk about is cultural Marxism, which is a topic I can't properly unpack in less than 2 minutes, but it's infiltrated our universities, our accrediting institutions, and our professional organizations, and has not spared the counseling profession. In fact, it's obvious we've been targeted. Well-funded institutions like WPATH have aligned themselves with these groups to radically alter the generally accepted standards of care in a systemic fashion. It's a brilliant strategy, if only it weren't so destructive in its objectives. It would turn what should be and still is a noble profession intent on helping people critically think through their problems and hold them accountable into a spineless trade in which the therapist affirms whatever malady or version of truth a client brings through the front door. Our boards should be ashamed for allowing it to permeate our code of ethics and standards of care, and we should all be embarrassed for allowing it to happen. Right now, academia is turning out unprepared students who truly believe they're worth $200 an hour before the ink's dry on their associate license. And supervisors, like these good people, are having to spend time and resources teaching these newcomers what universities should have taught them.
30 seconds.
The cognitive disconnect between what they're taught and what they encounter after graduation is crippling to their individual careers, to the profession and its future, and is confusing the living hell out of Joe Citizen. This remedial mode of supervision is a problem. It doesn't have to exist, but at least they understand their pronouns. BX cleaned up the legal house. The ship of counseling is still in grave danger. It's listing badly to port because the moral and ethical keel that's kept us afloat is damaged. We can pretend that nothing's wrong and call it progress, but what we're doing is not working. And my grandkids are going to have to clean up the mess that we're still creating. And it's going to cost them everything.
You're at your time limit. Thank you.
What we're going to do about it, I'd like to know what you're going to do. And thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Next person is Rhonda Kimball.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for the work that you do. Today has been quite an experience, and I'm very impressed by all of you. I feel that it has been so much more collaborative. So you as a board, we have LPCs calling in, we're defending and protecting the public, and we are actually making people accountable by giving the remediations. Oh, I knew. I'm over 60. Be patient with me. Anyway, as we're going into this rule review, all I could say before, when I was thinking about what am I going to say, the only thing that comes to my mind is remember the one true and living God when you do it. I am a Christian who does clinical counseling, and I need to be free to point people to Christ. It's what I do, to use the Bible and scripture and to help them meditate on healthy, life-changing work, like we heard from that gentleman today. And so when you review the rules, please make sure you maintain and retain that freedom. Our ethics are being dictated by people that don't get their morals, which are where ethics come from. And in this Judeo-Christian law that we have, that was usually coming from the Bible. So when we get these big organizations that dictate what we have to study, what is actually ethical when you're in that room with somebody who's hurting from things that, you know, you want to talk about cultural awareness. Well, in some cultures, incest is okay. It's not okay. And people are hurting. In some cultures, it's okay for church people to hurt. It's not okay. And that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with kids that think they're cats because their parents like the cat more than they like the kid. And we have to be able to be free to deal with these issues with the present day modalities, evidence-based protocols. And that's what I want you to consider when you are reading those rules. Times have changed. Things are getting worse. More kids are killing themselves than ever, and even adults. So we have to address those things. For me, if you're not addressing the spiritual realm, you're sunk. That's my personal opinion. I belong to this organization because we are like-minded. I also belong to the Association of Christian Counselors. So I need to have that freedom to go where I am built up, edified, and able and equipped to serve the public. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kimball. If you would please send in a list of any rules that you specifically are concerned about, we'll be sure to add in the review. Thank you.
Okay. And the last person we have in person is Elke Gonzalez.
No. Sandra not want to? No, I don't.
Sandra?
Actually,
No? Oh, okay.
All right. So now we'll go to those that are online. Anyone who is on the online Zoom, please go ahead and raise your hand if you're interested in providing public comment. Okay, we have Angela Bowles. You there, Angela? Yeah, I just.
Hello?
There we go.
Sorry about that. Good morning, board. My name is Angela Bowles. I am a licensed professional counselor supervisor and the Texas Counseling Association liaison to the board. TCA appreciates the opportunity to provide public comment. However, at this time, TCA does not have an official comment on this agenda, but is listening to the discussions today and processing the information regarding the rule review in upcoming town hall meetings. We look forward to hearing from our membership in the days following this meeting in preparation for discussion at the town hall meeting. As always, TCA would like to thank the board for their dedicated volunteer service to our profession and those we serve here in the great state of Texas. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on the Zoom call that would like to provide public comment? Looks like that is it.
All right. Thank you, Christina. Moving on.
We can start the meeting.
Item number 5, orders for the board chair. Christina, will you confirm that there are none today?
There are none.
Thank you. Item 6, Christina, orders from second quarter, please.
There were five agreed orders that were in your material already been executed, so no action needed by the board.
Board, any question regarding those orders? Hearing none, we'll move on. Item 7 are reports. Christina again.
We have the reports there in your board packet material for your review. If you have any questions, let me know.
Board, any questions? Christina, you are doing very well. Thank you very much. Let's continue on. Item number 8, we do have a SOA matter, and I believe it's either Patrick, are you presenting it?
I was just going to speak very briefly to set it up if you want me to.
Yeah, please do. And if he is here, he'll get 10 minutes. Christina will check and see if he's on the Zoom.
Sure. Victoria Benitez is the attorney that handled the matter. It went to SOA. He did not show up. We had a default order come back. And so from SOA, and so there is a proposed final decision in order for the board to review, and staff would recommend that you recommend to the council for final adoption at their next council meeting. He was convicted of Medicaid fraud, and so through the use of his license, so the recommendation was revocation for him. He's not responded or showed up to anything to answer for these charges. So
okay,
that's pretty much where it stands. I don't know if you have any specific questions, and also Victoria can help answer some questions as well.
Yeah. Can you just remind us, which was it, me or Janie that did this one?
Oh,
neither of us.
It must have been one of you. Let me. Is Victoria on?
Because do I need to?
One of you will need to
It
recuse.
doesn't ring a bell to me.
It doesn't ring a bell to me either, Janie.
Victoria is there.
Yeah, it was quite a long time ago. We have had great difficulties.
It's possible it was a staff ISC because it's Medicaid fraud, and it's not really. I think in the statute we're required to revoke them. So I don't know that there's a lot of discretion. But if you'll double check, Victoria, I don't remember who did the ISC. Just one of you would need to recuse from voting if
they always remember the ones that they've done. So I believe both of them, but
this is old.
He was convicted in 22 in May of 22.
Few of them, so I'm just hoping that it was me.
I want to say it was Dr. Taylor.
Thanks, Vicky.
Well, I think it was one of those ISC days where a lot of people did not show up.
Probably why it's not memorable.
I do not see anyone on the Zoom meeting.
If Mr. Huckabee will raise his hand in the Zoom function, we can call on him.
yeah, board, is there any discussion on this?
I move we accept the SOA order to revoke the license.
We need to, as a very respectful point of order, we have to accept the proposed order and refer it back to BHEC for final.
Okay.
Okay, do I have a second on Dr. Stubblefield's motion? Thank you, Ms. Campanone. Any discussion regarding the motion and the second?
Mr. Chair, on the advice of counsel, I must recuse myself.
Thank you. I was worried you were going to introduce stipulations. Dr. Taylor, sit this one out. Any discussion regarding the motion? Okay, we'll now go ahead and take a vote. All in favor of accepting the SOA proposal and referring the order back to BHEC, please signify aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that is everyone with Dr. Taylor abstaining or recusing. I suppose that's different.
Shut up.
But I did not see that no one did appear on the Zoom.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Item number 9,
Actually,
Janie.
I can confirm it was Dr. Taylor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Happy to do it.
Let's move ahead. Item number 9, Janie, will you tell us where things stand with the Children's Mental Health Strategic Plan Subcommittee?
Yes, Chair. So the Children's Mental Health Strategic Plan Subcommittee has been very actively working to gather the data. We have been divided into 5 work groups. Those groups are governance, service array, family and youth voice, workforce, and metrics. I am leading the workforce work group. And each of those 5 work groups have certain tasks to gather the recommendations that they're going to bring to the full board, to that full committee, rather. The next committee meeting is Monday, June 24th, 2024. At which point each of those 5 work groups will make the recommendations of what they want in the report. And so hopefully the BHEC meeting is the very next day. So hopefully I'll have more to present to you at that BHEC meeting. In the report that I shared with you, all work groups are working on those reviews. The writers are beginning to work on graphics and reporting the development in terms of the important language to include as well as language to avoid and things like that. And so it is a very fast moving committee and very interesting to see kind of all that's coming together on behalf of Texas children.
This is going to get a lot of attention, I believe. I think this is going to get picked up by news organizations when this comes out. I think it's kind of a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, HHSC put it as their number 1 item for next.
Yeah.
For next session.
So,
And the subcommittee is on target with their proposed timeline that I'd shared in previous meetings.
great. Again, thank you for extra effort with your involvement on that committee on behalf of not only the LPC board, but BHEC as a whole.
And I think everybody is aware of this. We have a shortage of workers, and there's lots of data out there, all except for a couple of counties in Texas are in a mental health shortage, and we have full counties that don't have a single mental health worker in the county. And so we need more qualified mental health workers, specifically that will work with children. And so grateful to the BHEC staff and the workforce survey that they did last year. That has been tremendous in helping, kind of formulate directly from our mental health professionals what they're working on, so we understand from the voice of the mental health workers what they're doing and how they're serving the population.
Right. I mean, it's simply amazing when to see how quickly things can move when like everyone is in agreement on get the barriers out of the way. Let's get this done. And that's a testament to a lot of committed people with their efforts on this. So thank you. Item number 10 is committee reports. Christina is going to handle application and supervisions.
Yes, so the applications committee, they've been busy with lots of emails with me. We did have 3 cases, but they were, one was related to military experience that went back and forth for a little while. We had to get a lot of data on that. And then we had 2 that were related to supervisor reservations that were able to be resolved through committee and didn't require full board. So thank you all for your time. I know I bother you all with lots of emails, but I do truly appreciate it. So, and it helps get the applications processed quicker. So thank you.
Well, we should be thanking you, Christina. Thank you. You and staff are amazing. You work so very, very hard for all you do.
Absolutely.
I will second that. I agree.
Robert, no, not Robert. Patrick, are we, sorry, all attorneys look alike to me. Sorry. Patrick, are we because I get this question all the time. Are we tracking these supervisor reservations?
They're reviewed on a case-by-case basis on whether or not there are grounds for denying the
I mean,
application.
are we tracking the quantity of the
I
frequency?
mean, I have like an Excel sheet that I
That's
do
good
it.
enough for me. So
That's-
that's yes.
Okay.
Okay, good.
But
I
no,
just
great.
ever since we did the allowed associates to start their own practice, I get this question every single time. So I just want to know so I
Okay.
can answer that we are tracking it, and
Yeah.
before I go to a talk or something, I can say, hey, has it gone up or down? And okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Christina. I would like to point out that Dr. Stubblefield, who never turns down an opportunity for additional work, agreed to step up and take the chair role of the Rules Committee. And so from now on, I'll be handing this off to you for the Rules Committee update. Dr. Stubblefield, please.
And fortunately, timing works out great because I'm closing the chapter on the one assignment before we're really opening up this one. And so grateful that Daryl and the BHEC staff hired somebody who's really doing all the heavy lifting. So Chair, what I have to report is that the Rules Committee met on May 7th of 2024 to discuss the quadrennial rules review. And I am going to pass the baton to Mr. Romig, who is going to give more details in terms of what that is going to look like for our group as well as our stakeholders and the public.
All right. Robert, item number 11, that's you.
That's me. So first want to say thank you to all the folks who are here and online and have already engaged. And we're really glad that you are interested and excited about rule review. It is a pretty mundane, bureaucratic kind of thing to get excited about, but I'm all for it. So let me start. I've got a presentation about the substantive initial findings of staff and the committee. But first, let me go ahead and just start and lay out for you the process of what steps we're going to take and how stakeholders can get involved, because I know that's probably the most pressing question on everybody's mind. It's how is this going to get laid out? So the first way anyone can provide input at any time from now in perpetuity is to send me an email. Barring anything else, you are all welcome. Every licensee out there. I don't have a limit on my email inbox that I know of yet. McGregor may be worrying that we're going to test that theory.
We're going to help you find it, Robert.
Yeah, but I'm happy to receive emails if folks want to send me ideas. I will keep track of them. And generally, what I have told everyone, and I will reaffirm today for everyone who is listening, if you send me an idea for a rule review, if you have a comment between now and when we close rule review, everything I receive will go on a list that is discussed by the rule committee. No, staff will not turn down anything holistically unless you ask for something that is illegal. Sorry, won't pass that on. But otherwise, great ideas, good ideas, bad ideas will all be talked about by the committee. On sometime around July 1st, after the next council meeting, we will publish the formal notice of the rule review in the Texas Register. That will be the official start. Even before that, sometime in the next couple of weeks, you will see an update to our website. Our rules page will have a rule review comment link where we will have an online comment form. And so that's another way you can send in your comment for the rule review process. We will also we have all the town halls scheduled for each board. This one is scheduled for August 13th at 11 a.m. It will be mostly Zoom. However, this room is reserved. So if there is anyone who really prefers to be in person, you are welcome to come. The town hall is posted on our website, and the PowerPoint that I'm about to show you will also be posted with that town hall as essentially the agenda-ish. But so you'll have access to the PowerPoint I'm about to show you. And so hopefully many ways for you to provide all this feedback. I also want to really clearly state there will be no rule changes even proposed until October. All of this process is discussion, is kicking around ideas. Nothing is immediately changing. Everything that you see me put on screen, these are not proposals. These are not language that's going in the register. None of that will happen until October. So lots of time to discuss and think about what we want to propose. What we will do is we have the staff initial findings that have been reviewed by the committee. We'll have you as the board review those as well, and I'll take your input and add any changes to this PowerPoint with that input. We will then seek stakeholder input just offline as well as at that town hall meeting. I will then incorporate all of that feedback into, again, those findings, that PowerPoint. That will be at your September meeting. We will bring that back to you and ask for your vote then. That is when you will, as a board, need to vote simply to accept that they are the findings of the rule review process. It will not be endorsing anything on that findings. They will simply be, these are the potential rule changes that we will then be discussing. At that same September meeting,
This is
October meeting,
Sorry.
thank you.
I just want to clarify.
At that same October meeting, we will ask only for you as the board to put forward and propose the things that need to be repealed cleanly to keep our rules legal. And so that's the only thing, and I'll show you those here in a minute. There's very few. That's the only thing. So one vote to just accept the findings and one vote to propose some necessary legal repeals. Everything else, we will then start a lovely journey together for the next year, working through the rules process and the rules committee to talk about and think about these changes.
Are you saying that we are possibly doing illegal things at this moment?
I would never say that in a public meeting.
Oh, oops.
But there are a few things that need to be tweaked to align with statute.
All right.
So with that,
we're self-reporting.
Exactly, self-reporting. Good call. With that, let me go ahead and share my screen on the virtual setting so that everybody can see this. All right. Our initial findings. The first category is our provisions that because of conflict with other laws or how the statutes work, they just need to be repealed. There's no problems that need fixing. There's no amendments that need happening. It's just language that needs removal. There's a provision in related to billing and financial arrangements, particularly related to referrals, that uses language that says the board in rule is saying something will not be considered a violation of state law. That oversteps the board's authority. We can't, as a board, say for the rest of Texas what is or is not a violation of state law. And we are not relying on this provision specifically to do anything. It's really about referral facilities and that Health and Safety Code 164 that we don't enforce. So, simple thing that we would like to recommend removing from statute. I should say I'm going to move fairly quickly through all of these since the committee has reviewed them. If anyone has significant heartburn and would like to stop and discuss something, happy to. I'm also happy to talk one-on-one after the meeting if you have any questions. Under the general ethical requirements, there are a few provisions that are unenforceable by the way the provisions are set, particularly having to do with a licensee being required to impact the mental state of the client, whether a client holds an exaggerated belief, whether the client is somebody else said is false or deceptive. We have other places in the rules that deal with the licensee may not make or rely upon false or deceptive statements. in their therapeutic practice. And so those cover every situation we would need to enforce against. These are just an overstatement that we think can be reduced. And then the last one, F, is having to do with taking reasonable action to inform personnel. This language is essentially copied from the Health and Safety Code, and other rules already point out that you have to follow the Health and Safety Code, and that is what is actually governing an ability of a licensee to disclose information. And so we don't need to have a rule that could potentially conflict if that code ever changed and our rule didn't. So that's why we're recommending removing that from the rules, since it's elsewhere already. Licensees are directed to follow Health and Safety Code, Chapter 611. This easy drug and alcohol use, this is simply a statement that is in the rules twice. There's already a statement that licensee should not be impaired by drugs or alcohol. And so we don't need 68144. It's a duplicate. The assumed names rule, licensees are already governed by the business code business and commerce code, when it comes to forming a business and what they can and cannot name their corporations. We as the council and the board we don't take action against somebody for how they incorporate their business and how they name their business. Instead, we rely on those false and deceptive rules. So again, we will discuss these, we will propose these and have lots of discussion. But for example, if this is one where someone were to read this and say, then I can name my business anything I want. No, you will still be subject to the false and deceptive rules. You cannot have a business that uses a name that misleads your clients as to who you are. So that is why this rule is not necessary. Conflicting with other laws, we can rely on the others. Advertising and announcements. Most of this rule is fine. There's just one provision, number 8, that talks about taking advantage of fears or emotions, and is just not an enforceable standard for our investigators to be able to prove whether something unnaturally takes advantage of fears. And instead, again, we rely on proving that something is false or misleading or deceptive and fraudulent. And general academic requirements. This is really just the first sentence is outdated. It's now governed by 882.11 of the council rules, and that's what the second sentence says. The foreign degrees standard is no longer about whether it will be counted as transfer credits. It's about whether the evaluating institution sends us the document. Again, apologies. I feel like I'm going very fast through these, but I hope
you go faster.
Hopefully y'all have seen all of these and can digest and ask me questions later. Again, LPC associate must comply with the provisions of the rules. It's a duplicative rule. It appears twice. Experience requirements to supervisors appears twice. The examination rule has a couple of phrases. And again, this PowerPoint will be online, so please don't feel like you have to memorize everything. Has a couple of statements that are not regulatory. They're just in the rules stating information. And that's not what rules are for. So
And they're both in the statute, right?
They're not specifically regulated either way. The development of an exam may be contracted to a national testing company. That's just there is no prohibition against doing such a thing.
I just said both of those are in the statute.
I don't know that the text is in statute, but they don't conflict with statute. Yeah. And then finally, the only last thing that needs to get cleaned up and repealed is there's a provision in our sanctions law about conditional letters of agreement. We don't have statutory authority to issue those, and we don't issue those. Haven't for years. So we're just removing that. So that was the biggest chunk. Other things that need more consideration, more review and discussion. are things that could use update and standardization across the boards. These topics include court-related practices. Across all 4 boards, we want to make sure that our rules related to court practices don't overstep into the court's jurisdiction and really state what our practice jurisdiction is. This will be a longer conversation. Similarly, military-related applications, we want to make sure that all of our provisions both align with Occupations Code Chapter 55 that governs military applications, but also that we as an agency are treating military applicants the same across all of our boards. Board meetings and committee agendas, this is really more of an internal operations because of the nature of how the boards came together. Some of the just administrative rules about how many committees you have and how many people serve on a committee are different. We're not saying that everything is going to be forced to be aligned. We're just going to sit down and have the conversation together to align where we can. I believe y'all are familiar with the standardizations committee that has already worked previously. And then the last sort of across the board look is telepractice. Most of this, we want to make sure we're using the same terminology and we're clear about what do we as an agency consider to be telepractice, use of technology services. This would be a good chance for the AI conversation to come in of what is allowed and what is not allowed in the profession. Then we have a couple of items that are not really subject matter. They are just things we need to amend to align with operations. Client records, there's a section that says that supervisors, that licensees have to keep a signed informed consent. We just want to make sure it's clear that it's not required if you're employed by an agency that is holding the consent. And then we have a rule that says the keeping records 7 years or 5 years after the client reaches the age of majority, which I believe is 23. And so we could just 23.
So we don't have to do the math.
So we don't have to do math on that.
I like that.
We need to add a requirement to submit a report from NPDB onto the application procedure. It is elsewhere in the rules. We just want to make sure it's clear. Experience requirements throughout the rules. We have this phrase council approved supervisor. What we understand that to mean is approved means you hold supervisor status, not that we as a council are approving your individual choice of supervisor. We don't do that. And then there's a provision related to if a supervisor gets into disciplinary trouble, they are no longer authorized to be a supervisor and how you deal with that. And some of the language surrounding the expiration of that authorization just doesn't use the right words. It uses expiration rather than the probation or suspension. It's a technical issue that needs cleaning up. Lastly, and this is where many of the input that y'all give to us will go. And in fact, I have already received 2 pieces of public input that are not on this list, but will go on this list. These are just provisions that we will then start bringing to you as a board to consider and discuss. The answer may be we don't want to change our rules. The answer may be we want to overhaul the rules or somewhere in between, and that is perfectly fine. And so I'm not going to go through this list. Please peruse at your leisure. It's quite small on the board and long. Again, please pull up the PowerPoint. I'm happy to email it to anybody who asks for it. But these will just all be subject matter topics. For example, prohibited client relationships, informed consent, CE requirements, application materials, the issue of whether a course supervisor course expires in 5 or 2 years. These will go on the list to have the chance for the board to discuss at a future date. And with that, that concludes all of my long...
You have the most warm and soothing voice I've ever heard. I mean, it's very NPR.
Which may make it
Robert,
hard to
thank
pay
you.
attention.
No, that's fantastic. that's the start. Well, that's not even the start. That's kind of like a modification of what we started with. And this is going to be a journey, as the kids say. We're going to have a journey. Board, any questions for Robert?
Good job.
Yeah, good job. Appreciate that. All right. Anything else?
No, that again, just to reiterate, nothing you have to do today, but in October, I will be bringing you a request to approve the final findings, as this is what we found, and we'll take a vote on each of the different repeals that I mentioned. And they'll be drafted just like regular rule changes.
What is the day again of that town hall?
The town hall is August 13th from 11 to 1.
11, okay. Is there CE credit for the town hall?
No, unfortunately, I
No?
don't think
Oh,
I'm
okay.
authorized to do that. I don't know who is.
Well, free CE gets everybody out there, right?
I mean, it would be a state agency that's doing it, so I think it would fall under the.
I can talk to Daryl. Yeah, we will ask Daryl if that it falls in line.
What? Okay. Daryl, he's not on here, is he?
Oh, he's getting CEs himself today,
Oh.
actually.
Okay. We'll get back to everybody on that. Please promote it. Stakeholder organizations, please promote the town hall meeting. We want to as much input as possible on this. No. Okay. Robert, thank you very much. Item number 12 is the board chair report. I'll start off with the recap of the previous BHEC meeting. First, we did adopt 882.28, the PhD credentials, and we also adopted 681.72, removing the 5-year deadline. Couple items of note: confirmation emails now being sent out following successful license renewals. That's a great update because a lot of times people were wondering. And this one is kind of interesting, and I'm paying attention to it. BHEC is soliciting bids for CE management. I feel as though I'm the only person who's kind of skeptical about this, so I tend to ask questions about it, but it is still moving forward right now. I imagine we're going to learn a lot more about it at the next BHEC meeting coming up in a couple weeks. Okay. Couple items of note, personnel wise, Pastor Roy Smith resigned his position a few weeks ago. And so we are currently an 8-member board. We have an open public member position right now. We will be waiting to hear from the governor's office regarding a new appointment. And finally, we'll wrap up with, again, congratulations, Janie, on completion of the document. Fantastic work. That's it for the board chair report. Any questions? Hearing none. Item number 13, Christina, your administrator report.
All right. So staff continue to receive high volume phone calls and emails. So we ask that the best way for someone to get in touch with us is by email, either using the contact us form, or when you leave a voicemail, make sure and leave your email address so that they can reach back out to you. We also ask that people don't contact us about status updates before 6 weeks. Staff are processing quicker than or sooner than 6 weeks, but we want to make sure and allow that amount of time before contacting us. They receive hundreds of applications, and so just be patient with them. They're continuing to work as quickly as they can, again, making sure that all requirements are met. Let's see. So there's just a reminder, lots of resources online. We continuously update the FAQs as we see questions come in repeatedly. We like to just throw that on there. So definitely spread the word to people to double check that. Let's see, upgrades. Again, make sure for any supervisors out here, make sure your associates are completing the online upgrade application. There's no additional fee, but that is what initiates the upgrade application for staff to work on. So make sure that is completed. Supervisors, make sure you are submitting your supervised experience documentation forms within 30 days of ending supervision. Doesn't matter if you're the first supervisor, second supervisor, or third supervisor, get them in within 30 days of completing supervision. That can cause a lot of issues for the associate when you're not completing that rule, complying with that rule and submitting that experience form within those 30 days. Also, supervisors should not be signing off on hours that the associate did not complete with them. If there is an issue where a supervisor has passed away, you can contact our office and we'll try and work that out with you. But supervisors should really not be signing off just because the other supervisor doesn't want to. That should kind of be maybe a concern we want to look into a little bit more. Renewals, just a reminder, we send out the courtesy renewal 60 days prior to the renewal being opened. So make sure you do that. If you're selected for audit, that is the only time we need you to submit and upload your CEs. Human trafficking awareness course is required at every renewal, as well as the jurisprudence exam. And currently, staff are processing as of May 7th. Processing times for all across the board applications. So I appreciate your patience with us and continued support on spreading the word and having people sign up for email updates. And especially right now with the quadrennial rule review, we definitely need to make sure everyone stays in the know of all the changes going on. So thank you.
I just want to say, Christina, you guys are doing such a great job. I joined this board, 8.5 years ago, 9 years ago now. And I remember my first board meeting was 3 days long. 3 days. Now it's 3 hours. We were processing applications from 12 months ago.
Yeah. It was bad.
Now it's 30 days, which is out of our control anyways, right? Because we have to wait on the test from NBCC.
Yeah. A lot of times it's stuff, the applicants are waiting on the NCE score to be sent to us. It does take about 30 to 45 days for that to come over to us from NBCC, just because of that validation process that they have to do. Robert will be going to the NBCC conference that's coming up with Dr. Taylor, and hopefully they can see if they can work their magic and try and get that number down a little bit or another way. So, but otherwise, yeah, I mean, staff still see a little bit of deficiencies here and there. But I do think they have cleared up a little bit. I think having our website, there's so much information and it spells out when under applying for a license, any associates out there or soon to be associate students applying for a license, we tell you step by step everything you need to do. The links are there. So, it's on there. You just got to look for it.
Okay. Anything else for Christina? All right. Hey, we appreciate it. Before we adjourn, I'd like to recognize a couple people. Brenda, thank you for everything that you do. We didn't get to introduce you before the meeting, but appreciate coordination here. McGregor, thank you on the technical end. And our officer, I did not get your name, but thank you for being here and just kind of keeping an eye on everything for us. You guys are all appreciated. Thank you. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Stubblefield, and seconded by Dr. Taylor. All in favor of adjournment, please raise your hands. As always, thank you for your service to the great state of Texas. We're adjourned. Yeah, I think it's okay.